Here at the table,
starting
from the extreme right, the producers with Sue Taylor and Yael Fogiel, the two producers.
Juste à côté d'elle, la jeune héroïne du film, Morgana Davis.
Morgana Davis, who is the young heroine of the film, a wonderful actress.
Juste à ma gauche, la réalisatrice Julie Bertuccelli.
Julie Bertuccelli, who is the director of the film.
Dont l'arbre est le deuxième long métrage. Le premier, c'était
Tree is her second major film, and her first When Utter Has Left, which had a grand prize. Alongside her, the heroine of the film, who has come back to Cannes after her prize in Cannes last year, Charlotte Gainsbourg.
Messieurs les photographes,
so
merci.
If the photographers wouldn't mind.
Julie, première question.
Julie, a first question for you. What really moved you in the book, in the novel? What gave you this desire to make the film? I think I saw in these two characters, the daughter and the mother, how each of them, after the death of the father, they go about their lives, and each of them live it in a different way. But they create through this drama, and the little girl in particular, who creates a whole world around it and develops her imagination. And she takes the time to grow up at the same time. And the mother who lets go, as it were. She tries to be a perfect mother, but she allows her daughter to do some strange things. And each of them are solitary in a way. They each have their own solitude, and they have to live with this sadness. You saw the book, well, the book was written from the point of view of the little girl, but you thought that there were two points of view, in fact, the mother and the girl. When did you get that idea? From the beginning, when I read the book and I wanted to make the film, I thought that it was richer. It's always difficult to have two characters like this on a single level, but I thought that the back and forth would be more interesting to make a story. And also, the relationship between the mother and the daughter is so important. And I wanted to keep the family at the same time. And the tree, I wanted the tree to be very present. So this was lots of things to bring together. So there was a kind of diversity. And I thought that this diversity would be richer. You made the film in Australia, where the novel took place. What led you to go to Australia to make the film? Just to be faithful to the novel, or was it a way to get into a new adventure? Obviously, there was a kind of obligation because there was a co-production with Australia. But for me, it was very important to do it in Australia. It would have been sad if I hadn't gone there, because it was a film about nature. And we're very small compared with nature. And this tree, and there are lots of other things which show us the immensity of nature. But you get the feeling of the immensity of nature, and we're so little in the face of the elements. The elements are so unforeseeable, the storms, the animals, fires, drought, and so forth. All of these are very strong elements of nature, and we can't control them. And so it was a wonderful metaphor to be in this country, and I wanted to stay close to the intimacy of the characters with the immensity of nature. And so the contrast between the two was very interesting. Yael, were there any problems for you to produce a film in Italy? In Australia, rather. Australia. Now, did you have any special problems? Lots of special problems. To make a film outside of France isn't necessarily a problem. With Julie, we've already made a film in Georgia. But here, Australia, which is very, very far away. So a very distant country, with a whole production system which is based on the Anglo-American system, basically. It's a different production system. So it was a very complex project. But we were lucky because we met Sue Taylor, a producer who lives in Perth, which is very far away, even in Australia, who had the idea to adapt the book at the same time as us. She was even faster than us because she bought the rights before we did. So this was the birth of the production. Two different places, very far from one another, at the other side of the world. And thanks to Sue, we were able to do it very well in Australia. Sue Taylor, how do you complement one another, you and Yael Fogiel? How do you work together?
Well, she's Israeli, and I'm English, and we made a film between France and Australia in Australia. It's an interesting question. We actually how do we complement each other? I don't know about that one.
You are the nice one.
No, I changed. Actually, it was very interesting. Yeah, sometimes I was the good producer and sometimes the bad producer, and we just had to play that game every now and again. But as a team, we actually got on extremely well, even though we have different languages and different cultural backgrounds. We actually, from the very, very beginning, when we discussed the book, we knew that we were making the same film, and we've never had any creative differences at all. You know, there were some differences in the way we approach the filmmaking process sometimes, just because I think the French way is a much more, organic way, actually, of filmmaking. And it's much more structured within Australia sometimes, and we tend to get driven by the efficiency and the schedules and those sorts of things. So sometimes there's conflicts in those areas. But actually, it's a very, very productive process. And actually, I think we all felt that, well, I felt that I learned a lot from the process. And I think it's something that with co-productions, frequently they come together for financial reasons. We came together purely for creative reasons, and I think that was the strength of the film.
En tout cas, d'avoir deux producteurs, c'est formidable quand il y en a un qui dit non.
Having two producers, it's great. So when one says no, the other says yes.
Non, ça a changé.
Morgana, is it your first movie? And what is your best memory?
Yeah, it's my first movie, and the best memories, the best memories being with everybody, which I am with now.
Charlotte, après le Lars von Trier, vous retrouvez un personnage.
After the Lars von Trier, here you have a woman who is mourning once again.
Est-ce que c'est ce rapprochement qui vous a
Is this the proximity which enchanted you, or did you realize this afterwards? I feel a little bit ashamed, in fact. It's crazy to say this, but I'd already made the film of Lars, and when I read Julie's script, I didn't think of Lars's film at all. Here, obviously, once again, I'm in mourning. You see me mourning with nature, which is very, very present in the film, but which is dealt with in such a different way. But that's the end of the comparison. What touched you most in your character? Her awkwardness. And the fact that it's her children which bring her back to life, awaken her again, this man as well. And it's this whole development, this evolution of the woman, which interested me most. When the film begins, she's completely bowled over. And then gently she climbs up again, as it were, and comes back to life. You acted in English again. Does this change something in the way you act or the pleasure that you have? I think it changes things. It's rather different from me. It's outside of me. It's my second language. It's the language of my mother, but it's not my mother language, as it were. And as there's a great deal of distance in my mind in this respect, perhaps I have a certain freedom or something which means that I dare more, and I don't judge myself in the same way. And it's great fun. First question in the front row.